Welcome to Cathedral Talk, a podcast about architecture and Minecraft, where we converse to save Notre-Dame. So it's been a while, huh? It's been about, 9 months?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We haven't had an episode in a while because, David got pneumonia.
For 9 months.
For 9 months.
Okay.
You got pneumonia, man. What can I say? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, I am feeling better.
That's good.
And if there are random mutings, that's Tom getting rid of my coughing. But I've mostly passed that now.
That's good. It was not actually 9 months, but I was trying to hunt and peck for any possible excuses I could find.
And so you blamed your brother.
Isn't that my MO?
Sure. Certainly my MO.
Oh, that's true.
So I have from March of this year. So yeah, 9 months.
Yeah, 9 months.
So why did you decide to gather us all together, Tom?
Because Sarah told me she wants me to shave my head. And I was going to consult Zach if I should do that.
It feels really nice.
Yeah.
She wants you to shave your head, really?
She wants me to shave my head, yeah. My comb over is awful, and I got a haircut, which improves things, but she thinks I should go for the Prince William.
I will say, I've always thought Prince William was a little... Yeah, and the beard really helps.
Yeah. Well, and I guess he now does, actually shave the top of his head. He just owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's got, hair on the sides.
Zach, have you ever had a shaven head and no facial hair?
Yeah. Do you want me to share a picture of it?
Go for it. When did you first start shaving your head?
Oh, this is slightly after college. I was starting to lose my hair in college. And so I think I shaved my head the first time on my first job out of college. So this would be 2007. And then just sort of fluctuate in and out between shaving my head. And then, yeah.
I guess I do vaguely remember you with hair.
I looked good with hair.
I'm sure you did.
But I also look good bald.
It's just very vague.
We all looked good with hair. Well, David still looks good with hair. Zach and Tom, it's a thing in the past.
You have more of an excuse than the average man.
Yeah, cancer. It kind of grew back, but it didn't exactly grow back. So
Not in the way it was.
no.
Which is what it is.
Yeah. But I remember when I first shaved my head the first time for the cancer 10 years ago. The thing that surprised me the most was getting used to lying on a pillow because I never realized how much hair smooths out the rolling that you do back and forth on the pillow. Because as soon as you shave your head, the little bristles, the spikes pull the pillow with you. And it's the pillow's moving with my head, and it's such a weird feeling.
Oh.
It's very strange. Very strange.
The only equivalent of that I have at all is I have had a couple of beards in the past, and the first time putting your face on a pillow post shaving off a beard is quite the sensation.
Yeah, that's true too.
I'm not sure it makes sense. I hadn't quite realized that you proactively shaved your head when you had cancer.
Yeah.
That must have been when I was not around.
It's possible. Yeah, it was after the first round of chemo. At first, you're still, at least me, I certainly was still a little bit in denial at the beginning, well, maybe I'll keep my hair, which no, you will not keep your hair. And then after you have that first shower, when suddenly hair is just coming out in your hand as you're washing yourself, you're oh, this is depressing. So you're well, better take ownership and just shave it all. So then, fortunately, NIH has its own barber for this very thing. So just went over there and zip, and they were done in 5 minutes. So that was good to just own it and then get used to it.
If you click the first link, Zach, it works.
It does?
Yeah. Actually, no offense. There's no way for this not to be a backhanded compliment. That looks better than I thought it was going to.
I have a pretty good memory in my head of what Zach looked like with hair, just because.
No, this is no hair.
This is no hair
on head, no hair on face.
Okay, sorry, I'm not looking at that.
I like your beard, but I like you without your beard more than I thought I would. Zach's just dumbfounded.
No, I'm looking for other pictures of me without beards.
I mean, Zach still would have probably stubble, is my guess in these pictures.
He does have stubble. And stubble does do a lot for me, I have to say.
It does a lot, yes. Like, it says there would be beard here if,
Okay, that one barely looks like you.
This is pretty old.
Yeah.
I think that one was 2015. So that was 9 years ago.
I think you genuinely could have shared that photo with me with no context, and I would have assumed it was a random stock image from the internet.
All these pictures that we're talking about here, we're going to have to decide whether or not we're actually going to link these to the podcast so the viewers can, listeners.
That's a Zach decision.
Listeners can comment.
I don't want the first one because it's got Brenna in it, but the second one is fine.
Okay. Well, you could always, you can.
Google AI.
Yeah.
Put Zach through AI.
Well, okay. So
have fun editing around that one.
Yeah, let's get serious here. All right. So why are we actually here? Well, it is December 2024, and Notre-Dame has reopened.
Yay!
Yay!
Much cheering.
Yay!
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 I've already been 5 times.
So have you watched any of the ceremonies of, the opening? Little clips here and there?
Didn't need to. It was there.
Wait, what?
No, I was not there.
I asked you if you wanted to go.
I was in Utah.
You were doing something very different.
And I was in Utah.
He was geeking out with Brandon Sanderson.
Woo.
But that's a topic for another time.
I've watched the footage of what it looks like now post-opening. I didn't watch any of the actual ceremony itself.
Yeah, I mean, even I didn't. I don't think I watched ceremonies entirely all the way through. We're talking a couple hours here and there. But I watched, probably about half of each.
What sort of things did they do?
Yeah, so they opened it for the first time with its first ceremony, actually on Saturday, December 7th. Originally, it had been broadcast, it was going to be on the 8th, but it was actually an evening, nighttime ceremony, kind of after dark, where President Macron and a whole bunch of world leaders kind of had this procession, kind of like a parade of nations, kind of one after another, of him greeting a whole bunch of people and having a big service in the cathedral. There was actually some funny stuff between Macron and the clergy of the cathedral because apparently before, like a few days before the service was finally held, Macron wanted to give a speech inside the cathedral. And the clergy said, absolutely not. We have separation of church and state here in France. They do too, although they actually kind of operate very differently over there. I think we've mentioned before that Notre-Dame is actually owned by the state. Ever since the French Revolution, all the churches and things were seized by, the French for the people. Some of them were converted into not churches for other things. Notre-Dame was briefly called, I think, the Temple of Enlightenment or something.
If we mentioned that, I'd forgotten that the state owned that. Huh.
Yeah. The state owns the cathedral, but still, even with that in mind, the clergy is really what's controlling all the day-to-day operations. The government sort of gives them open access to it, and they effectively run it. I mean, they don't pay rent or something, but it's kind of a similar relationship, I guess. But the thing is, the clergy were very specific, this is supposed to be for religious services inside, and you can do all your politicking outside. And Macron was like, aw. And then it rained. It turned out that it was a pretty rainy day. The French have had a rough time, by the way. Rained for the whole Olympic opening ceremony over the summer. And then it's rained for the opening of Notre-Dame. All their major ceremonies are getting rained out.
They say it's good luck.
Yeah. Basically, Macron went back to the clergy and said, hey, it's raining. Can I please give my speech inside? And the clergy were like, okay.
Sanctuary.
But yeah, it was a neat service to watch.
So you're saying this was the evening the night before.
This was the evening sort of service on the Saturday, December 7th.
And then the fanfare stuff was more the next day?
Well, it was very fanfare on, so I mean, this is like I said, it was a parade of nations, and that's, very
Okay.
fanfare President-elect Trump was there, which was a lot in the news, which, that was a thing. And interestingly enough, Macron was actually using this Notre-Dame reopening event as an excuse to get President-elect Trump and President Zelensky in a room somewhere to talk about Ukraine, which was very cunning by Macron, just to try to use even Notre-Dame for international geopolitics.
As it always has.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it was I feel like in our history episodes, we were talking about cathedrals being a huge intersection between culture, politics, and religion.
Yep.
As far back as Napoleon, and much earlier than that, I presume.
Yeah. And they had some cool videos of all the work that had been done in summary. And they had honoring of both the firefighters who saved the cathedral, as well as honoring many of the artisans who worked on the cathedral, all in the service. Most significantly to me, this was really, at least this week leading up until that time was really the first time the press were allowed entrance to see the inside of the cathedral for the first time once it was completely restored. And of course, that's the part I'm most interested in talking about. Have you seen any of the shots of the inside now that it is complete?
I want to talk about that too, and I imagine that's going to be the bulk of our conversation. But Tom, were the bells part of it?
Yes, the bells were part of it. They rang Emmanuel, as they should. And of course, as a quick reminder, Emmanuel and its sister newborn Mary, which are both in the South Tower, were never affected by the fire. Emmanuel only rang for the very beginning of the ceremony when the world leaders were entering the cathedral. And then at the end of the service, they rang all the bells in the North Tower. This is kind of a big side tangent, obviously, bells and me. But they finally, like in the last month or so, gave us a lot of new information on the state of those bells. As you might recall from the very beginning of this podcast,
right?
I had been trying to get information on the damage to the North Tower because it was on fire. What's the state of those bells? What's happening? And for some reason, even though they were very open about like all the work they were doing to the organ and, all that stuff, it was really difficult to get any information until really after the fact on precisely what was happening to the belfry in the North Tower. And we finally found out really in like over this long hiatus we've had for the podcast. They basically had to dismantle the entire North Belfry, which was very charred to a crisp, and inspect the bells, and they actually shipped them all back to the original foundry that cast them.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, cast them in 2012/2013. They were installed in 2013. These are newer bells, as you probably remember us talking about before. When they inspected the new bells, it turned out that a couple of them had sustained considerable damage. So they did a couple things. The heaviest of the 8 bells in that North Tower, Gabriel, was cracked at its headstock. It's about 4 tons, and so they had to completely repair the headstock so it wouldn't fall off of the belfry and cause lots of damage to other things and ring appropriately. So they repaired the headstock and fixed some of the gilding on the top of it, but for the most part, I think the bell itself, in terms of its acoustics, was okay.
This is more of a structural issue.
Yeah. And then there was another bell, the 6th bell, Marcel, which was apparently one of the more damaged bells of them all. And so they had to do something, which this is a word I had never heard before. They had to anneal the bell.
You also clearly haven't heard the word Marseille before.
No, it's Marcel.
Okay.
Marcel. I think it's Marcel. I think it's Marcel.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not Marseille. Yeah. No. Nice try though.
Yeah.
I
saw Zach's smirk first, and I thought he said something about it.
No. It's Marce. I looked this.
Yeah, that's Marcel.
Yeah,
you're right.
I looked this up. It's the 6th bell. They had to anneal it, which means they had to reheat it to a point so that it wasn't melted, but they needed to basically like let its molecular structure kind of resettle itself. Basically, they were afraid that the heat of the fire would have messed up the idealized molecular spacing of, the orientation of all the molecules from its original casting. And if it's not optimized like it's supposed to be, it could crack under ringing. So instead, they had to heat it up, annealing, and let it slowly cool so that that heating process would sort of let it reorient itself and get it so it's back into a molecular configuration that's ideal again. So anyway, this was an intensive process for at least those 2 bells, and they cleaned up the others. Some of them were fine. Some of them were fairly untouched by the fire. But once they repaired all the bells, they shipped them back, and then they rehung them again. They did some tests a few weeks before the opening ceremony, and then on the opening ceremony, they rang those bells at the end.
I wonder how easy it is or hard it is to make small blemishes in a bell to the point where it actually significantly changes the tone or timbre. Are they pretty hardy in that it takes quite a bit, such as a gigantic inferno, or because of their precise overtones and things, like it doesn't take much to get them sounding really out of whack.
Yeah, I think since they are pretty specifically aligned to very precise pitches, a little bit of heating probably could mess them up, notably. So that's one of the reasons why they sent them back. They had to check all the pitches of all the bells and get them so that they were tuned properly. And they're all tuned to a manuel. They've actually talked about that, where I think I mentioned that the F sharp of a manuel, the famous old bell, which F sharp is it? What equal temperament is being used for that F sharp, right? It could be a slightly different F sharp this way or that way. But whatever it is, all the other bells have been tuned around that, so they're a nice set. And so, yeah, it's a very precise tuning that they all are supposed to have.
Is tuning for a bell not... I would have assumed that tuning for a bell was like removing material from the bell.
It is.
You can only go one direction there, and if you overshoot...
Correct.
You could deposit material onto it. Like we were talking about annealing is something that I did in college. You can heat up a material. I don't think you would have access to a very large vacuum, but if you heat up something like copper in a vacuum, then the copper starts to evaporate, and then it can deposit on the inside of a surface. I don't think you need a vacuum, but that would be one way to add material.
It's a great question on the tuning, and so there's a couple different perspectives on this. One, chain ringing bells, which are the ones that I'm familiar with as a bell ringer myself. The British foundry or foundries, what used to be Whitechapel, which closed, or Taylor Bells, which is still open, they have a very precise way of tuning bells that is just like you described, David, scraping metal outside of it. And they have a very highly trained professional acoustician who is using both his ear as well as instruments to check all the various overtones of the bell. Because, bells have not just one note, but they have multiple overtones that are all supposed to sound in some sort of harmonious conglomeration. They have also talked about with Notre-Dame and its bell foundry, which is in Normandy. It's like the Cornille Harvard bell foundry. They talk about tuning these bells too. They don't actually, I haven't found a video where they show that process. And I have heard that different foundries do use different methods to tune. And like, for example, like I said, again, the British people might scrape metal out, whereas I think I remember reading some bell foundries try very hard to optimize the original casting itself to get that shape perfectly using computers so that it comes out pre-tuned, I guess, through the initial casting. Now, again, I remember talking to another ringer in Britain who will remain nameless, but I remember this was...
Because you don't remember their name?
No, I remember their name very...
He was never given a name.
No.
Yeah,
I know exactly who this person is.
Remain nameless.
And this person's actually a very famous ringer too, like very famous.
Ooh.
Yeah. Big.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Kind of, that is actually a fairly apt description as far as the bell ringing community goes, yes. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson told me...
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson told me that those French and their inferior tuning, their bells are not tuned properly the way proper British bells are tuned. So clearly there's a lot of emotions out there on what is the best way to tune a bell and what method is the right way to do it. So I don't know precisely how the French went about the tuning of these bells, but they claim that they put a lot of work into it. And to me, they sound great. So that's good enough for me.
I'm very curious of the order of operations there of which came first, a disdain of an Englishman for the French or a disdain for a type of tuning, because it's not obvious which one might result in the other.
Well, and one other thing that made me both annoyed and relieved at the same time, annoyed in that they didn't do something, but relieved that I didn't feel as bad about missing it because I wanted to be there and I couldn't be there for this. They didn't actually ring all 10 bells at the same time, as far as I could tell.
That would have been loud.
Which I was really surprised by. I mean, they do it regularly, certainly before the fire they did, but only on specific occasions, a couple of times a year, primarily because Emmanuel, again, my favorite bell, is so old and it is aging, and bells don't last forever. They last a very long time, but they don't last forever. They say that they are trying to preserve it by only ringing it so much. So they ring it for like the major holidays like Easter and Christmas and probably a few other very important Catholic religious days.
So Ship of Theseus, to go back to like episode 1, is
2.
Your memory's better than mine. Is this bell the same bell?
Well, it is the same bell. It's the same material.
Well, if it's been annealed.
Oh, are you sorry? Are you talking about Marcel? Yes, the Marcel bell, I mean, is the same material, but it got reheated and cooled again.
Different bell.
Different bell?
I mean,
Different bell.
I mean, theoretically, it's the same atoms. I mean, the atoms just got reoriented, right? They're sort of reoptimized, you know?
I'm sure the French said the same thing when they melted down the bells into musket pellets.
Same bell.
Same bell.
Same bell.
Same atoms.
Same atoms.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't ring all 10 for the service, though. They rang, like I said, Emmanuel at the beginning, and they rang the Light 8 for the end, but they didn't ring all 10 at once. So I was a little relieved that I didn't miss it. I wanted to be there for that special moment, and it turns out that special moment didn't come. And I listened to the video for the following masses that they had the next day, and I think they did the same thing. So they must just be waiting for Easter. So have you actually seen some pictures of the inside of our new beloved Notre Dame nave?
Well, as showrunner for this show, you sent us a couple of videos
I did.
that I watched.
Okay.
So I saw multiple pictures happening in quick succession. It was quite lovely.
Yeah, the comparison of, we've had a whole episode on dark and light ages ago, whether we wanted Notre Dame to result in light to cut to the conclusion. I mean, who boys at light now? Like it's full on. You could lie and convince someone that they whitewashed it afterwards. They like painted the thing.
Yeah.
It's so starkly different, even though that's just a cleaning up of the grime.
Yeah. I am really interested to see just how bright it feels inside. Obviously, it's going to feel way brighter. Probably something a lot more akin to St. Paul's, David, like how we've talked about how St. Paul's is very bright inside, very white inside with that Portland limestone. In this case, it's Lutetian limestone at Notre Dame. I would like to spend a day also, again, going out to Chartres.
Sure.
I would like to go out to Chartres. I can never say it right. Chartres. And compare its whitewashing versus Notre Dame and see if my suspicions are correct that Chartres was actually like painted over in some places, whereas I think Notre Dame is just extensively cleaned. I think it's still the actual stone surface. I don't think we're going to see any like painted over faux joints like at Chartres. So that will be a really interesting comparison I would like to see and get some actual firsthand evidence of comparison. Yeah.
It was light enough that when the stained glass, the light from the stained glass fell on to the newly cleaned stone, it was quite striking. It was very pretty.
I forgot to look specifically for that. Yeah, because that was one of my one of the things I was thinking about, because a huge difference even now with it being so clean compared to St. Paul's in London. St. Paul's is still largely transparent glass, not stained glass. Does it reach the level of feeling light inside with the windows still being stained glass, which of course blocks a considerable portion of light?
Yeah, and I mean, Notre Dame still has a lot of artificial light in it.
Sure.
It's got a big artificial light system all around it, as do so many of these great cathedrals. I mean, even St. Paul's has a lot of chandeliers and artificial light systems built into it too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much of it feels artificial and how much of it feels natural. And again, a lot of these shots that we're seeing from the initial opening have still been taken, with scaffolding still covering a lot of the exterior. I need to say now, I've used the word complete, and that is actually inaccurate. Notre Dame is not complete.
Never will be.
No, well, yes. But Notre Dame is officially still on the books to be worked on through 2028. It's just that the interior is complete and it is reopened, rededicated, holding mass again. It is a functioning cathedral again. But in terms of the restoration for both more fire damage as well as just a lot of initial decay that had occurred before the fire that needs to get repaired. That work is going to continue on the exterior through 2028, which is why you're still going to see a lot of scaffolding all over the building, including other things like the spire still isn't completely done. It still has lead sheathing to cover sort of the bottom part of it, which is very ornate and artistic and is time consuming. Which is also why they're still raising money.
Yeah, so you can still donate to Friends of Notre Dame.
Yep, you can still donate. They need it.
I was wondering if you're going to need to change the end of this or not.
I think I am going to have to change it pretty soon, but I think I can get away for 1 or 2 more episodes, leaving it the way it is.
I was trying to think of a signifier for what complete would actually mean. I mean, I made the crack that it will never be done, and I do actually believe that.
True.
But scaffolding is a pretty good visual signifier of, quote unquote, this
project
specific era has finished. This project has finished.
Yeah.
And I hadn't actually quite realized that there was still some up, so that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot up, actually.
Okay. Connecting it to the video you shared of what Notre Dame looked like beforehand, you shared a good one, I assume you'll put the link in, of a couple of, I don't know what their job titles were, but employees pre-fire looking at all, basically like, it was a perfect comparison because they're basically looking at the dirt of Notre Dame and talking about where all the dirt and dust is and how much it accumulates, and like, oh God, we found more dust and dirt. Didn't we just clean this 2 years ago? Oh, it's back again.
The water damage is probably gone.
The water damage in the roof is definitely gone. And I think this video was, I didn't look at what it was originally from other than when it was published on YouTube, but it seems like it was published very shortly before the fire, because they also make a crack about, not a crack, it's just funny in hindsight. They make a comment about how they are about to install better fire detection in the roof or something like, oh, that was a little slow.
Yeah, I would love to know precisely what their new enhanced fire protection system in the roof is actually composed of.
If there's anything I trust them on, I have to say now, I very much trust that they were smart about that.
It's a dumbwaiter and a bucket of water.
I would hope so.
It would have been better.
It sounded like it was a combination of like suppression, fire suppression. I don't know if it's sprinklers, but probably some kind of, my guess is some kind of chemical agent of fire suppression sprayed all around. I would imagine they also just have way more surveillance equipment up there too, like probably just like cameras everywhere. Like, look at that corner, look at this corner, look at this corner.
Right. Because they comment that there was no electricity up there before, and I presume there is now.
Yeah. It was very dark and gloomy before. So, I mean, it'll be dark up there, but I imagine it's got a lot more access to modern utilities up there that weren't there before.
So now that there's modern surveillance up in the roof, it's not a place that the local Parisian high schoolers can go and drink.
No, probably not.
A rite of passage, gone forever.
A rite of passage, yeah.
In terms of actually some dates, I told you the estimated completion date is now supposed to be 2028. By 2025, the apse, the east semicircular end of the nave, as well as the sacristy, which is the smaller building off the side of Notre Dame, which also needs restoration, are supposed to be done in 2025. In 2026, there's actually been some controversy. I guess there are a few chapels around the side of the cathedral, not many, just a few, that they're going to be putting some new stained glass windows in with some modern influence, which has been a big controversial thing. This is a part of a political initiative by Macron, which again has been hotly contested by other people who are saying, oh, you're trying to, turn this medieval monument into modern political amalgamation. But the counter argument is that the windows that they are intending to replace with some modern stuff are windows that were lost in the French Revolution already. And it was Viollet-le-Duc, our hero from the mid-1800s, who put in some reimagined stained glass to fill them in to, give it a new breath of life back then. But they're certainly not medieval windows that are getting replaced. It's, 19th century windows that are getting replaced. And Viollet-le-Duc certainly has plenty of other stuff that he did and still remains. So it's been an interesting, contentious issue.
It's funny how the scale of controversial modernization has decreased considerably from the original proposals of completely redoing the roof to like modernist architecture, which that was all scrapped so that it's going to look basically the same. And so now the level of modernizing controversy is changing a couple of stained glass windows in a way that the average person will not be able to tell a difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that'll be part of the interesting question of, will the style of the new windows made in the modern age try to be an homage to medieval style, or will it just say, nope, we're doing something entirely modern and it's going to go there and it's going to be awesome, you know? I don't have a strong opinion on this myself. I'm kind of waiting to see.
The thing about stained glass is like, even with modernist techniques, like it just always comes across as an old art form, in my opinion.
Sure.
So like just the nature of having it, even when it looks newer, and like National Cathedral stained glass does look newer. I'll acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But it just evokes old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in New York recently and went to the Met and saw beautiful works by Tiffany in stained glass. And I don't think that they look ancient at all. They look very contemporary.
Okay.
Depends on how you do it. And I mean, I think I would have big opinions if like, oh, we're going to replace all the chapel windows around the entire cathedral. I would be like, well, no, hang on now. You know, replacing a few windows that aren't even medieval already. I do like the idea that a cathedral is a living thing and that it is growing. Like you said, is it ever complete? No, it is still possible to put some new modern art in it so that the cathedral feels connected to the community. Also in 2027, the forecourt and the approach, as well as a lot of vegetation, are going to be updated too. They're going to be really working on the grounds around the cathedral for that final year of restoration. They're going to be planting a lot of new trees to go along with the existing trees already. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort of work out that new square that's already in front of the cathedral. And there's also a, I guess, defunct parking lot that's below the square in front of the cathedral too that isn't used as a parking lot anymore. There's also a bit of a crypt down there too, but I think the idea is they're going to be probably rebuilding some kind of like visitors reception area in front of the cathedral. I kind of got the impression something not entirely different from what they did in front of the U.S. Capitol building. You remember, David?
That's what I was thinking about too, yeah.
Yeah, like something that doesn't affect the architecture itself above ground, but something that is helpful and practical and useful for incoming visitors below ground.
More than doubled the total square footage of the U.S. Capitol, but virtually all of that's underground.
Is it really that big?
Yeah, it's huge.
I haven't seen it yet. I need to go see it. You need to take me on a tour there.
I have taken you on a tour there. That was like a decade ago.
In the reception space?
Yeah, the visitor center opened 15 years ago.
Well, I've completely blacked that out of my memory. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you haven't taken me up the dome.
That's true. I also haven't gone up the dome.
Yeah. I want to go up the dome. Make that happen.
I've been almost invited twice, and it hasn't happened for various reasons. This thing we posted from Tiffany. Okay, yeah, I take back what I said. That is definitely of a more modern style, and I guess jarring would be the word if like something like that is what they put into Notre Dame instead.
I would hope not, but it was more to elicit. Not all stained glass looks alike.
Yeah. I retract that point. I also should have retracted that point before I said it because while I was not in Paris, I was in, as I mentioned, in Utah. My favorite author, Brandon Sanderson. And I didn't get to see this, but Brandon Sanderson in his house has commissioned a local stained glass artisans to make custom stained glass for his house. Along one wall are depictions from his books, and along the other wall are depictions from other famous fantasy books. So Wheel of Time, The Hobbit, some other ones you haven't heard of.
Can you buy like custom like Brandon Sanderson books with like illustrations of like pictures of his stained glass from his house?
Well, so kind of. You can get a playmat of the design that is his primary work, The Way of Kings.
Yeah.
I guess that's a way to describe it, primary work, which is, I considered buying it, which is this beautiful depiction of the story of that book done in stained glass. But you know, it's just a flat image in what you can buy. And that's actually an interesting question you pose there, because that stained glass is such a unique medium. And I use the word unique to mean like one of a kind, in that it is not translatable except to see it in person. you can't take a picture of it. You can't take a static image of it and sell that and have it be meaningful in the same way.
Oh, yeah.
They filmed a video so people could see what the stained glass in his house looked like. And that's great because it was the first time we as a fan community been able to look at it. But like, it's still not the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I ultimately did not buy the print because like it doesn't evoke what a stained glass would evoke. It's just a still image.
Is that similar to the conversation that we were having about the difference between listening to a performance of a Bell versus being at the Bell performance?
Yeah, especially for visual mediums. I think it's not as many examples of that, but there certainly are some. Glass work in general, I think, not just stained glass, but other glass things, because of how light shines through it, is definitely one where in person versus an image or picture just doesn't do justice.
Oh, I have a good one for you. Maybe I haven't mentioned this one before. I have the exact same anecdote about going to see Michelangelo's David in Florence. I mean, Michelangelo's David, one of the most famous sculptures ever. It's, again, the statue of a naked David. It's extremely tall. I forget exactly how tall. It's probably 2 or 3 times the height of a person. He's leaning back on his ankle and he's holding a sling and he's supposed to be looking out and sort of judging, about ready to kill
Goliath.
Goliath, thank you. But, I'd seen pictures of this statue many times before and I was like, yeah, good statue. Once I saw it in person, I was like, okay, I get it now.
How much of that was the height?
That's part of it, but it's so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't appreciate material sometimes until you see material in person. The way things shimmer as you rotate around them in a room.
Yeah.
The way you can see the subtle bumps mimicking musculature under what's supposed to be his skin. It's just this. It was definitely, certainly the size is part of it. That's not disputed, but it was definitely something that you have to see to appreciate fully.
Previously, you had made a comment that the sculpture art in Notre Dame was not the type of art that drew your attention.
Yeah.
Presumably, none of us have been there. It's a lot lighter in there.
Yeah.
Do you think that you are going to be able to look at the sculpture art differently now that it's lighter than previously when it was darker?
That's a good question. Maybe. I think one of the reasons why I've said before I tend to not focus on the sculpture as much when I'm at Notre Dame or other Gothic cathedrals is just because I'm already so focused on the other architectural elements, that my attention is already being drawn to other things. So it'll be interesting to see if I prioritize differently. Yeah.
The ribbed vaults aren't passé now.
Related to that, not just the sculptures in the stonework, but also the sculptures that are, I don't know what the material will be, bronze or whatever, that are inside, which in some of the videos of what it looks like now when it's so much lighter, the bronze is still bronze. It's still dark, but before it just kind of faded into the darkness of the space. But now it creates a huge contrast of all this very light stonework, but with some statues that really stand out amidst them, and I think draw your eye far more than they ever could have in the old way.
That's a good point. Many of the statues are stone too, but again, there are also statues in the carvings of the choir stalls and the sort of the whole choir section. So there's just all kinds of art, and like you said, the things that aren't stone definitely will be a lot more noticeable than they probably were in the sort of gloomy Notre Dame. The coolest thing about this rebirth of Notre Dame is how we have kind of had our eyes opened. Notre Dame was never the gloomy place that so many architectural historians have claimed that it was. Remember that Notre Dame is sometimes considered to be not quite on the cusp of high Gothic architecture. Really, it's the cathedrals of Chartres and Reims and Amiens that are all considered sort of like the technology had been perfected. We have how to build proper flying buttresses and extremely large clerestories and so forth. And Notre Dame hadn't quite figured that all out when they built it, and which is why it had so many revisions and changes and alterations made during its extended construction period. And many historians have just said, they failed. Notre Dame doesn't have that wonderful light that a lot of these other cathedrals do. But I'm now really want to go there and see, does Notre Dame actually succeed? Is it as light as these other cathedrals? And we just didn't know it because it was so dingy.
With that revisionist mindset, connecting this to some of the things you were saying before, the concerns about any sort of modernizing in regards to the stained glass, you obviously track reactions far more than Zach or I do. What sort of reactions have you seen to the lightening of the space? Is it universally praised? Are there people pushing back saying, like, I miss the old way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just thinking about that. No, it's not universally praised. There are, I've, again, seen videos on YouTube and other news sources where some people say they kind of miss the way it used to be, and other people even go out and say that they've done it a disservice and they shouldn't have done all this. I don't agree with those people. I think actually this was a good thing to do. It needed it. It was too dark, in my opinion. It needed to be brightened up. Because again, that's the whole point of Gothic architecture, height and light, like we've said many, many times. But I also get where people are coming from. They say like, well, now it just feels like some modern mall or something, which I think is silly. But, people say it feels like it's just been, it's lost all its history to it. I think we'll just have to give it a little time, let it age again. It's going to age again. That's something that will happen again. I don't know if Viollet-le-Duc, again in the 1860s when they were doing the last major restoration that occurred, did they clean it as extensively as we did this time? My guess is probably not, just because we have better technology to clean it than they would have. But my guess is it probably was considerably lighter back then. It probably goes through this semi-cyclical cycle of, darkening over time and then getting cleaned and then darkening over time again. So we're just kind of in a new phase.
My brain was going to of like, yeah, how long does it stay in this form? I mean, to your point on modern technology, I could imagine that it never gets dark like that ever again. Like it is potentially different before if modern humans make that choice, that feels more in our power than it probably ever was in the past. And it's going to be curious to see, I mean, I guess over our entire lifetimes, because that's how long it would take to really start to notice any degradation of how light it is right now. If the modern stewards of Notre Dame let it fall back into any semblance of darkness again, or if they just try to preserve it in this way from here on out.
I mean, it'll change a bit. Like, I mean,
Sure.
Just because, it's incredibly difficult to get up there and touch that stone.
Sure.
Without the extensive encapsulation of scaffolding that they had up for the last 5 years. Once that's gone, how do you get back up there to do anything?
But it's also a far less polluted city than it would have been over the past 150 years.
True.
200 years, where, that's in the midst of the Industrial Revolution, which certainly touched Paris as well. And we're moving to a less soot-filled world.
It will probably never be as dark as it was. That's true. Yeah. But, I think I've also said before, I like to have a diversity in my cathedrals. I like them all to be different and have unique characteristics about them. I think now between the top four of France, again, Notre Dame, Chartres, Reims, and Amiens, I think now, again, if I hopefully get around to it and I get to see each of these again, I think Reims is now going to be probably the darkest because, again, Chartres had its own whitewashing. Amiens is very tall, very light, and it has a lot of clear glass in it, so that kind of keeps it pretty bright. But I've seen pictures of Reims, and it's fairly dark and gloomy there. So it would be interesting to see if, if we can leave some of these the way they were, then you can have a sort of some nice diversity and see from one cathedral to the next on different stages of their darkness cleaning life cycle. They also had some famous people play music at Notre Dame. We had Yo-Yo Ma.
Yo Mama.
He did his famous Bach, what's that Bach piece?
Cello Suite in G.
The one that they play on the West Wing and lots of other places.
And Arthur.
G major, sorry.
And then also they had...
Gustave Dudamel.
Thank you. I was waiting. He conducted the orchestra and he played...
Saint-Saëns.
Yeah, Saint-Saëns.
Saint-Saëns. Sousson.
Organ Symphony.
Yeah, organ symphonies.
Number 1, number 2? Might be number 2. Number 4?
It's the one they use in Babe.
It's the one they use in Babe. Excellent music.
I mean, it's good music.
Babe 1 or Babe 2, Pig in the City?
Babe 1. Da, 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 da.
I don't think I knew when I first saw Babe that was actually not original music.
No, definitely not. My story there is I knew that I haven't seen Babe probably since I was 12. But loved that music from that movie and associated it heavily, and then was taking a music history class of that era in senior year of high school, and part of that class was just playing a bunch of selections of things, and one of the selections was that. I'm like, wait, I know this. Why do I know this so well? And it took a little bit to figure out the connection in my head.
It's like when you go to a restaurant thinking like, this is a really sweet spot, and then you realize that it's a chain restaurant, and you're like, oh.
Exactly. It's the perfect piece for what they were trying to do, though. Excellent organ plus symphony, and based on his name, I assume he's French.
Nope.
Saint-Saëns not French?
Yeah, he's French.
Oh, Dudamel. Sorry.
No, not Dudamel. No, Saint-Saëns. And yeah, I don't know any others really like it that are on that scale and grandiosity.
Yeah, that'll do, Pig.
James Cromwell. That's like the last time he ever starred in anything.
He's a character actor, and he's a damn good one.
Right.
Was it not Babe who starred in Babe?
Yeah, I guess he's a co-star there too, isn't he?
Oh.
I wonder who the voice of Babe was.
Well, I mean, don't they usually, I mean, I don't know about Babe, but usually when they like do these animal movies, don't they actually have like multiple animals representing the one animal? Just the way they can give the animals a break.
You're just basing this off of end of episode wishbone segments.
That's definitely part of it.
Because I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, but also, I mean, it makes sense. Like, I feel like I've heard this somewhere else before. Oh, well, most of my life is based on Wishbone.
Wait, don't you really like Jerry Goldsmith or something, the composer?
Yeah, what about him?
He apparently stole this in the Babe soundtrack because he did that soundtrack.
Okay, good for him.
Your hero's a thief.
I mean, I wouldn't say Jerry Goldsmith is like my hero. Obviously, I love for what he did for Star Trek, but he's a piece of the pie in Star Trek. Isn't
it weird that one of the writers on Babe also wrote Mad Max? Isn't that weird?
I have not actually seen Mad Max.
I thought this movie won some awards, but oh yeah, it won an Oscar. What Oscar did it get?
We've really gone down the deep hole now.
Yeah. Wait, no.
Welcome to a new episode of David Reads IMDb.
Okay, best effects it won, but yeah, James Cromwell got best actor nominated for best actor in supporting role. Okay, so yep, still not a star.
Well, and Gustavo Dudamel is going to be, I think, the new New York City Philharmonic conductor.
Yeah,
he's going to New York City, I think I heard. So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, he's going to be the music and artistic director of the New York Philharmonic in 2026. He was the LA conductor for a while too. LA Philharmonic.
He was one of your favorites, Zach. I remember you showing me some of his videos like back in college.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's good stuff. I always love the commentary, especially like when it comes to like people watching conductors and stuff. Like I remember watching one of these videos and watching somebody put in the comments, "Oh, he's such a musical genius. Look at him go." And I'm like, yes, he is so smart. He can wave that wand like nobody.
Well, as all trombone players, man, he's so good. He can move that slide back and forth real good.
Real fast.
Real fast. Real accurately.
Oh, by the way, I have a whole thing I want to share with you about trombone stuff. Probably not this time, but like in the future. I've fallen in love with a new, actually not at all new, but a new finding of mine on YouTube. This one trombonist is just outstanding, and I can't get enough of her.
Yay.
Yay. So anyway, Notre-Dame's back. Sorry, we weren't here to talk about, a lot of the final stages of construction. I think, again, we kind of left off when they were finishing up the wooden trusses of the cathedral, and then they were going through all the sheathing of lead tiles on the roof. It was a long process. Then, of course, actually watching the spire itself go up. You couldn't see a lot of the interior work when this was all going on because they had just so much scaffolding on the inside. They didn't really release that many videos of the vaults themselves getting constructed. I'm hoping there will be some that'll like emerge in the future, because I really wanted to see, like, let's watch a vault get constructed, right? That's like, I think the most interesting thing that had to get rebuilt, that center vault with all the stones that had to get laid and all those ribs and things.
Since we skipped the Olympics for our recording time, did they do any Notre Dame things during the Olympics?
Not much. Well, they had one really nice piece of music that I really actually enjoyed to this day that had a pre-recorded dance routine of a bunch of, I presume, actual dancers in work attire that were kind of doing all this gymnastic-y stuff all over the scaffolding, which is pretty cool. It was very artistic. It was sort of this, it was a celebration song of the artistry of France.
Actually on the scaffolding?
Yeah. No, did you not see that during the Olympics?
No, I didn't. I missed the opening ceremony.
Oh, I will send the links to you. It was a really great opening number. I love that thing. And the music is really good too. You know what? Actually, I want to watch that with you in person. So next time I'm going to see you in 2 days for Happy Holidays. So I will show you in person.
Oh no, David has pneumonia again. Oh no.
Are you embarrassed about saying the word Christmas on your own podcast?
What did I say?
You said you paused and said Happy Holidays like you'd been warned on Christmas.
I think just as a school teacher, I'm so used to just saying Happy Holidays that it just comes out. Merry Christmas, David.
I feel attacked.
And it will come as no surprise whatsoever to anyone that ever listened to this podcast before.
Hey, Lena.
That absolutely no progress has been made on the 2-to-1 scale.
I really thought that's why we hadn't been doing this for 9 months, so you could go off and do something like that.
I did something. I really did. Oh, David.
This is bad news, not good news for David, at least.
Yeah.
This is a filler.
I have pneumonia.
No, okay, it's not done. It's gonna happen.
No, it's not.
It's a long game kind of project.
It's not gonna happen.
No, the thing that was stopping me from doing it.
This means you haven't put a brick on it in literally over a year.
Yes, that's true. But next episode, I get to finally talk to you about what I was doing. And I'm so excited for that episode. I was going to do that earlier, but then David got pneumonia. And so, sorry, folks.
I am happy to record that episode in 1 year from today after you have also built more on Notre Dame.
I mean, out of curiosity, did you guys see in your YouTube feed the thumbnail for the video I posted?
You told me not to, so I didn't.
Yeah, but it's hard to avoid the thumbnail if it's in your scrolling Rolodex.
I'm sorry, Tom. The algorithm does not frequently show me your YouTube channel as something that I need to make sure to watch.
I'm on the server right now.
You're trying to share with us the
lack of anything.
I already admitted that I didn't do anything. You don't have to prove.
Yeah, but we really need to rub it in.
I know. We have there's a whole bunch of new blocks since the last time you played, so I wonder how your resource pack is standing up.
Oh, there are. Again, you do have world edit on the server, right? So I can start to expedite things with some world editing, correct?
Yeah.
Excellent. That will speed things up.
No. You caring will speed things up.
Okay, fair enough. But you really killed my train of thought with that one. All right.
Success.
Presumably this is partially a Minecraft podcast as well. I know this episode is dedicated heavily to the reopening of Notre Dame, but I feel like spending 1 or 2 minutes on Minecraft is not the end of the world.
That's a fair point. The next one will be,
especially if we get a Raz Tom as part of it. I'm all game.
The next one will be 90% Minecraft, I promise. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about the project that I was working on. People who already listen to the podcast and follow us quite faithfully already know what I'm talking about because they've already watched the YouTube video. But you guys, being the good soldiers you are waiting patiently.
I still maintain that the Venn diagram of this podcast is the most hilarious 2 segments of people of all time, of cathedral enthusiasts and Minecraft players, which the center of that truly is just Tom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I will mention one final thing to my own small contribution to Notre Dame's reopening. Like I said, I wanted to be there, but obviously I wasn't able to make it in time. And I'm glad that I didn't go because I honestly probably wouldn't have been able to get in that first week just because it would have been
You're not a world leader.
I'm not a world leader.
Not even on your own Minecraft server.
No, I'm not. They have a whole online ticketing system now, and you have to wait in a very long line to get in, and I figure it'll just be a little bit easier to get in and take my time with appreciating it once the initial slam is over with. But while we were over here in the States and watching Notre-Dame reopen that weekend, the Washington Ringing Society, we rang a quarter peal for the reopening of Notre-Dame, which was also our normal Sunday service ringing, but we dedicated it to the reopening of Notre-Dame. And in fact, I used my now highly robust training in audio manipulation to record the bells at Washington National Cathedral, as well as take video footage of both the ringers and the bells themselves ringing at the same time. And so we have a lovely little YouTube video on our YouTube channel of the Washington National Cathedral bells ringing for the reopening of Notre-Dame on Sunday, December 8th, which was the first full day when they were holding Mass again.
How did you get the camera up there above the bells?
There is a stairwell that goes all the way to the roof.
Yeah.
And so I got a tripod to aim it down from that stairwell, which was a little bit scary because if you watch the video, you can see that tripod's shaking the whole time.
That's just your iPhone, I presume, right?
Yeah, that was an iPhone. I borrowed my wife's iPhone. I was like, can I borrow your iPhone for a few hours?
Oh, Jesus, dude.
She was like, really? Really, Tom? Really? Because I needed two. I needed one for the ringers and one for the bells themselves. But I thought it was fun because you can get a lot of videos of change ringing on the internet, but you can't get as many videos of seeing the bells and the ropes being pulled at the same time. So it was a fun little project that I had to do that, and this was a good excuse to do it.
Yeah.
Our own striking was not the best that day, so we can do better. But still, it sounds good. And the audio of the bells themselves, since I use some nice mics positioned strategically in a couple different places to get better sound. It's better sound than you just get from, a cell phone of somebody recording from the ringing room or something. So yeah, go check it out. Go watch, there's actually two versions of the video. There's a full length of the quarter peal if you want some lovely background noise for some bells while you're working, or there's just a 5-minute excerpt video if you just want to see probably the better section of a ringing right at the end.
It is funny how in those two different versions, the hour-long version has almost 3 times the number of views as the 5-minute version.
Yeah, that actually really surprised me. I thought it'd be the other way around. I did post the original version first, the full-length version first.
Yeah, that's probably part of it.
So maybe just the algorithm treated it that way. Yeah, I imagine the algorithm gets really confused with our YouTube.
Yeah, you're a weird little guy.
I post like these random 5-minute videos, and now actually the entire podcast is actually now on our YouTube channel. So Google Podcasts actually shuttered its doors, and they asked all its creators to upload all of the podcasts through their new. Basically, Google's now wants YouTube to be its podcasting domain. They have sort of a subsection of YouTube called YouTube Music, where they host all their audio files, and they have podcasts that can be searched through there. So I had to reconfigure our website, and now it links to YouTube Music for what used to be Google Podcasts. And so that works in concert with our YouTube channel. And it does take the RSS feed from our hosting service to just upload a podcast as soon as it's there. And the nice thing is when it used the RSS feed, it did place them in the proper timeline order from when they were published. And so it's not like it all got lobbed on top of the videos that were already there. The videos are nicely interspersed between them. So yeah, now you can actually listen to some of the podcasts on YouTube. And we've gone from, maybe 2 digits of listeners to maybe 3 digits of listeners. So that's nice.
Yeah, didn't realize this.
Yeah, it's all there now. And this episode will get automatically uploaded through the RSS to YouTube. So that's nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of glad that I thought about actually like doing something like this a while back. And I was making some of those video episodes, and I wanted to do more video episodes, but video episodes take forever. So I didn't get around to doing more than the first 2. And me being the perfectionist, I was like, well, I'll just wait until I can do it perfect, and of course that'll never happen.
I mean, your middle name, it was a strange choice of mom and dad, but your middle name is more than he can chew, so it makes sense.
Is that literally what Harlan means?
Literally.
Wow. I didn't know that. Maybe we just end it right there.
That was pretty good end, frankly.
Yeah, okay. All right.
You sounded You sounded very believable. Did you believe that for half a second? Because you sounded very believable when you asked that.
Oh, you were faking it?
Jesus Christ, man.
That's it for now. Check out our podcast website at cathedraltalk.fm. There you will find many architectural visuals and Minecraft goodies. If you would like to support our efforts here at Cathedral Talk to aid in the restoration of Notre Dame, please use the direct link on our website to donate to Friends of Notre-Dame de Paris.org. Friends of Notre Dame is a nonprofit organization that is leading the international fundraising efforts to rebuild and restore Notre Dame Cathedral. By donating to them through the link at cathedraltalk.fm, we'll know that our podcast is reaching new patrons. As our own Minecraft project progresses, we'll be sure to share plans, screenshots, and videos for your own visual palette. Good day and happy building.